This is the Seller Process Podcast, where we talk about the best systems, processes, and SOPs for your Amazon business so that you can regain control of your time, build up your team, and scale your e-com empire.
Hello, entrepreneurs. If you have been struggling to deal with your virtual assistants, or you're simply looking to find a better way to manage your VAs, motivate them, and increase the overall team productivity, then this episode is for you. Our guest today will share with us the system he has been using for years to manage dozens of different VAs to take care of his business operations. You have already seen him in a previous episode called The SOP to Create SOPs, which is one of the most listened to episodes in this podcast. I'm talking about Reggie Young, a seven-figure Amazon seller and digital marketing expert. He recently sold his Amazon business for over $600,000, and now he continues to launch new brands across different e-com platforms. He also consults for other entrepreneurs and aggregators who are looking to achieve success online, as well as personal freedom. Hey, buddy, how is it going?
Good. Thanks for having me back on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. So we had a great chat last time about SOPs. Now I wanted to pick your brain again about managing VAs, because I know you're a pro on that. So guys, know that Reggie is using, it's very fascinating because he's using VAs for literally everything, even VAs to hire other VAs or things like crazy things. He told me he's pulling off with the help of a great team. So I now would like, to pick your brain, Reggie, and talk about how can we all successfully manage our VAs, team members, to accomplish what we want to accomplish and scale our business. So let's start with I wanted to discuss basically the management, the actual management of the day-to-day tasks. Okay, so let's say we have already onboarded successfully our new team member. Okay, so because the onboarding process is something, that we will probably actually have a one specific episode just on that, okay, because it's a super important part. But let's say we've already, managed to do that successfully. So now we want to proceed with the recurring management of our VA. So what is the process to doing that, and what kind of documents and tools do we need to use to work efficiently together with our new VA?
Right. Yeah, I think there are so many different ways to accomplish this, but I think if we're always kind of keeping in mind, we always love to talk about the 80-20 rule, and in project management, the buzzword that people talk about is following what they call the critical path. And the critical path is every member on your team doing the most important thing at the right time to drive the project forward to completion at the right due date. And that really comes down to 80-20 of 80-20. 80-20 for when we think about an individual level, it's how do I put all this minutia aside and just work on what's important. When it comes to project management and you're working as a team, if everyone's working on different tasks, you could be waiting for the input from someone else way longer than you need to. So when you're managing a team of people, you have to organize it in a way in which everyone is driving the actions required in your business forward at the right time. And that can be really hard to do. And that's why you have degrees in project management. That's why you have software in project management. But the reality is, at least from what I've seen and having talked to project managers at different levels, and having done project management in the government, I find that when you're doing project management with VAs in our systems that we normally do in e-commerce, online, Amazon, keeping it simple is ultra important. And the best way to keep it simple to create this kind of management is to use, and everyone has heard about it before, Trello, ClickUp, Asana, Basecamp. Those are like the primary project management software and tools out there. And these tools are super complex. They can do all kinds of really cool things. But what I like to really do is boil it down to something extremely simple. And all it is when my VAs log in every single day, they have one place to look where they start to look for what they're supposed to do. And I call it a priority column. And it's just, hey, when you come to work every day, you go and you look at this column and you just look for your picture, your profile picture. And you start from the top and you work your way down. And all they have to do is look, they see, yep, that's my photo. This is my task. And they can click onto that task. And on that task is where I provide directions. And it's up to me as the manager or whoever I dedicate as the manager for a specific project to kind of move those pieces around while looking at the broader, what we call scope of the overall project. So if it's launch this Amazon brand, well, then what we need to do is break that down into different steps. So based off of your skill set, your ability to communicate what you need to your virtual assistant, or your virtual assistant's skill set, how far can they get? Are they so experienced that they can get to the point where you can just say, launch this brand and they can do it? Probably not. You would probably chunk it down and break things down. So it's up to you to kind of break things down. And I have systems dedicated for each part of that. But all you ultimately have to do, and I'd say the easiest way to get started, is to sign up for a software. Like, again, Trello, ClickUp, Asana are the most popular ones. I use ClickUp. And you just create what we call a board or a Kanban. I think it's called a Kanban view. And you have this column and you call it a priority column. And all you do is you create a card or a ticket and you assign your virtual assistant and you just put the directions on there. You can screen record yourself. You can link to a blog post, a YouTube video. You can link to a specific part of a course and you can say, hey, this is what I need you to do. Here's why. And then what ends up happening is they go through from that priority column and they say, yep, this is my task. Let me accomplish this. After that, they just work their way down. It's very, very visual, very streamlined. And as long as you as the manager or your system and your process is solid, then they will be doing the most important thing. They won't be checking their email, which is how I feel like a majority of project management happens in most businesses. Is we're just a slave to our email. We're a slave to our direct response. We're very responsive and reactive to how we manage our business and our systems. But if we keep things focused on a priority column and we're making sure that things are working from the top down, we're always moving things forward and that management happens kind of automatically. And that's the initial step of one, following the critical path, but two, building a solid foundation that allows for multiple people to follow that critical path. So I just gave an example of one virtual assistant looking at that priority column, seeing their profile picture, right, and working on that task. What if you have 3? What if you have 4? What if you have 10? What if you have more of them? Well, now the manager can group down, chunk down different tasks and organized based off of their priority, off of their critical path, off of their scope, how far they're looking at it, and move things around whenever they want. They can move it around whenever they want. The virtual assistant or the employee ultimately doesn't matter because they're working from the top down. They don't have to know the 6-month calendar, the 12-month calendar, the 3-month calendar. All they have to know is this is where I look and this is the task I work on. And from there, we can build pretty complex systems based off how complex and how scalable you want it to be. But my process, the fundamental thing that I use and that I teach is have a priority column. They work from the top down. And then we also have what's called a reoccurring schedule. So working from the top down is really just your daily actions, moving that actual project forward and doing the heavy lifting. But what if you have a task that a virtual assistant needs to check their email every day, or they need to fulfill orders every day, or every 2 months they need to do this, or every 3 days you want to post this on social media? Well, that can be very taxing if you're creating a task in the priority column every single time. So that's when we get into what's called workflow, or what I call workflow. And the workflow from a project management standpoint, they'll have a whole chart with all these different blocks. And then the line will kind of go through all these different blocks, and that line will be the critical path, but you'll have all these sub branches of different subtasks, right? We can see those as SOPs, but we can also see that as reoccurring tasks. So what I do is I try and deconstruct that in a way in which, one, the virtual assistant doesn't have to understand it. 2, that anyone who plugs into the system is naturally following it. And then 3, anyone who wants to use a similar system can just ultimately plug and play. So we have that priority column I talked about, and then those reoccurring tasks I talked about, all they do for my process and the way I currently have it scheduled and working, and it's worked really, really well for me, is my virtual assistant will log in every single day. They'll accomplish the top 2 tasks in that priority column, because for me now I know, trying to create that critical path, those 2 most important tasks, whatever I put towards the top, that's most important for my business, whether it's an emergency, whether it's, getting something unsuppressed, whether it's, whatever it is, those are at the very top. After I know those first 2 are done, I kind of want them to handle, what I call the reoccurring tasks, whether it's, like cleaning up around the business or whatever it is, checking email. So what they do, they're trained, and that's part of a solid onboarding system, right? With virtual assistants, we have to give them a good onboarding system, good training, et cetera. So once they're trained and they know how to work in a way that's complementary to your systems and your business, after they check those top 2 tasks, they're able to move that task off to the side and complete it. Then they jump to, for me, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It could be a different system for you, whatever it is, but they look at a place to reference. And that reference for me is what I call a reoccurring productivity schedule. And all it says is, here's the task, here's this person's name, and here's how often they do it, here's the SOP or the actions to take. And it's super simple because, again, they will log in every day, they accomplish the top 2 things to drive the business forward. And then they know, okay, after the first 2 things are done, I'm going to look here at this spreadsheet. It says my name, Reggie, and it says action, check social media for comments. And then it's like, okay, when Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I look at the calendar. Oh, today's Wednesday. I'm going to do it Wednesday. Today's Wednesday. Here's the SOP, or here's the actions I need to take. And it happens automatically. So pretty cool.
Okay. Well, that's great. That's lots of information. I think I have in mind, like more or less the whole process you just talked about, but I just want to break it down for people to understand it better, because this is quite similar to what I'm using. So that's why I'm understanding it quite easily, but it might be a little bit complex for those who is the first time they're hearing about this. So basically what you're saying is that after we're starting working with a new VA, we set up, we basically onboard him to our project management tool of our choice, which can be, in your example, you said ClickUp is your favorite. I personally use Asana. So that's a project management tool, and you divide the workspace of this project management tool for the VA into a Kanban board. Right. So the Kanban board, for those who don't know, it's just basically division of a visual division in columns. So basically people can create cards in each columns. Each card, it's basically a task assigned to this person, and they can move basically these tasks from one column to another column until it's completed. So your columns that you are suggesting are basically the priorities, right? The top priorities and recurring tasks. I'm interested to understand in the priority list. So this is basically a list of tasks that the VA needs to do, right? And they are ordered in terms of priorities. So on the top, people will find the most important priority, and the second will be the second most important priority, and so on. So I'm interested to understand, like, who is setting up these priorities? Is it you that every day or periodically set up these tasks and give the priority to the tasks, or you train the VA to give himself or herself the priority to the tasks?
Right. Yeah. So I do honestly a little bit of both. When I first started and I had a brand new VA who was just learning their skill set, I was actively managing the board, breaking down every single task. So if we think about the task of build a website, there's a lot of steps that can go into building a website. I'm at the point now where I can just DM one of my coworkers on Slack and say, build this website, make it look like this, and then it gets done. But when I first started out, it didn't work that way. I was the one logging into the website, finding examples, and then breaking that into 4 or 5 different tasks. First, create the logo. That became one task. Then buy the domain, and then do this, and then do that. But once you train them all up, and you train your virtual assistant up and you realize the skill set that they have, and everyone has different skill sets, you can eventually step back a little bit, and then your active management becomes less and less. So what I do right now is usually a mix. So where I'm at right now is I hold meetings whenever appropriate, and I'll just kind of go over and I'll task team leaders or managers like, hey, yes, I'm looking at this, just kind of have like a more of like a business, like a bigger business with more VAs. You end up being on more meetings. But when I first started, it was literally just me chunking down the task and taking care of it. But when I scaled beyond that, right, when I scaled between create the logo, buy the domain, change this part of the website, when I scaled from that, eventually I scaled to, okay, now build a website. And then I scaled to assigning, like I would literally create a task that would say, build a website, but I would say, okay, now tag this person and tag this person. And now this person, virtual assistant A is in charge of this card. It's their project. So I may have multiple people assigned to a card. And then that person knows like, hey, I'm responsible for this card. And we're all talking on that card, right? That's the benefit of a project management tool. It's very focused. You can just push everything off to the side and look when you get on that task, you look in that card and we already know who's assigned to that card, who's responsible. I have full visibility of it. We're having an active communication, but I'm kind of in the back seat, just only people may, if I see a problem, I may interject. If I have an opinion, if they ask me like, hey, we don't really know what we're doing here, or, what's your preference? I may go there. But the benefit of using a project management tool and having a scalable systems, you can decide whether you want to, how in the weeds you want to get or how far back you want to step, depending on how much you want to work, right? And when you first start off, it's important to get really granular, but as you get comfortable and as your virtual assistants get comfortable, I challenge you to kind of step back and either make the tasks less clear because you know that your virtual assistant can perform, or you allow your virtual assistants, if you have more than one, you hop on a meeting or you create a task that says, do this big project, and you're now responsible for this card. Provide updates when necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Great. So I'm interested to ask you, do you write the SOP and instructions in the project management tool, or do you have them sit in a different place for them, and you link people, you link these SOPs and instructions to the task in ClickUp or Asana?
Right. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to our first episode that we recorded together, right? The SOP to create SOPs. And there's different ways to do it depending on how important it is, whether for me, my time, or how important it is to the business. I may just literally pull up all the tabs, create the SOP super in depth, and then give that in the task. But what I find is more beneficial to me is as I assign the task, that's actually me building out the initial version of the SOP. I don't go and pull up the template, format the template, spend my time making it look all nice and pretty. I actually create a task in ClickUp in that project management software tool, and I'll list down the goal, the reason why, possible solutions, things to look out for, links to where I think solutions may be found or whatever it is. And then I'm really just like bullet pointing out, talking over it. And then I'll screen record and say, hey, this is the task. This is what I want. I'll click out of the project management tool and I'll reference an example, or I'll reference a resource or a software, and I'll just start talking. And this has kind of been an evolution of providing instruction. And then also, if I'm providing instruction and I have enough input, I will say, now this can also serve as the video for the SOP. So sometimes they may take that video, put that into the SOP. When it's done, when the task is done and complete, I'll basically say, and then when you're done, create an SOP from this and move this task into review for me to review. So one, I end up reviewing the SOP, and then I end up reviewing the task to see if it's done complete. And if I want to take it to the next level, I'll even say, hey, take care of this. Here's what I think. Here's probably how you do it. When you're done, create an SOP. And when you're done, add that SOP to the reoccurring schedule and accomplish it once a month. And that happens in like the span of like 5 minutes of me talking. And then I just implemented a system of which my virtual assistant figures out the problem, solves it, creates an SOP and creates a recurring function in my business. And it took less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's great advice, guys. Yeah, I really suggest you to listen twice if you haven't really clear what's the process he's using. This is something I've been using as well, and it's basically how you really scale massively at some point, because you're basically assigning a simple task to your VA and asking just with in a very simple format inside the project management tool, just enough to let the person understand what she or he should do, and then after she's done, then she will create the SOP for you. Okay, so that's how you start building all your assets in terms of SOPs and systems, because obviously you will not be able to create all of them by yourself, but that's basically like a great advice that Reggie just shared. That's how basically you manage to create hundreds of SOPs and you start to systemize your business. So I love that advice. Let's go then now, like, how do you keep training your VAs and monitor the progress? Because that's actually something it's a possible problem that we might encounter. We assign tasks in the way we mentioned, but then how do we monitor progress and make sure that everything is actually completed and done in the right way?
Yeah, 100%. And it kind of reminds me of the first time I hired a virtual assistant. I had no process whatsoever, and I was high ticket drop shipping. And I said, please go ahead and find my competition. And I recorded a video. This is way before Loom. Recorded a video. It was like 2 minutes, and I showed an example of my competition. And then I went to work, and I was at work for like the whole day. I came back, and that my virtual assistant had worked on it. I think I might have told this story before, but they worked on that spreadsheet for like 7 hours. And I was like, and they'd given me so much information, and they went so wide that it was actually useless. And then I had to step back and think, and at first I was like frustrated. I was like, that's not how is a t-shirt my competition? And the reality was I didn't define the scope of the task. And I also didn't define what project management we call milestones. I didn't okay, when you get here, let's check it. When we get here, let's check it. Right? And they were also a new virtual assistant. So I had ultimately failed as a business owner by not providing clear instruction, by not providing good oversight, good check-ins, like all these different things to make sure the task is moving forward, like you say. So what I do now is I'll either say it vocally, depending on how important it is I'll say, go ahead and create this task, create this logo. This should take you about 30 minutes. If it takes you longer than 30 minutes, move it into review. Or I want you to get this done, or give me whatever you can in 30 minutes. Because if you don't define like that restriction, your virtual assistant, one, can work beyond the scope, or they could end up maybe eventually getting it, but then maybe they're not doing the most important thing. Maybe at that point you want to interject, provide more resources, break the step down even more, outsource it more to someone else. You do all kinds of really unique things. And also on top of a lot of these project management software, you can assign an estimated time on there. So one, when they look at a task, they can see due dates of when they should hopefully get that task done. They can see how long it should take them. And then from there, they have the kind of personal responsibility to get that done. And then now when we think about from a managerial perspective, how do we create that accountability? I like to create that accountability by using screen recording software. And there's a bunch or screenshot software. And basically what it does is it takes a screenshot of your virtual assistant screen every 10 minutes, 5 minutes, hour, however long you want to set that. And what that does is it kind of helps hold them accountable, because they shouldn't be, checking their own Facebook account. They shouldn't be working on something else. They shouldn't, my virtual assistants, I require them not to have another job, so I can see if they're doing other things. Additionally, I require all of my virtual assistants to have 2 screens, right? And that 2 screens allows them to have work on one side of the screen, and then the other screen they're supposed to have the SOP up. And I can see if they're actually referencing the SOPs. And then, so that creates a little bit of hey, in the military, we say, I forgot. What do we say in the military? It says, trust but verify, right? Trust that they're working, but verify, right? Because at the end of the day, we're human. We want to take breaks, right? It takes an hour and then they end up getting good. It takes them 30 minutes and then they just log off or they, whatever. Yes, sir, it took me an hour, right? So it's good to at least have that feeling of being held accountable. And if something ever happens, because things happen in business, at least it's recorded and you can go back in. And then on top of that, things happen, right? So I can't tell you how many times I've had a virtual assistant say like, hey, sir, internet went down or the tool stopped working or, I need to take time off or this and this. Or I didn't track time because of this. Well, what I allow them to do is to go into this recording software and edit it. But when it edited, when you edit this screen capture software, they have to tell me two, it's trackable, so they can either add time or delete time, and it just allows for kind of self-management to happen automatically because I'm leveraging software and they're being held to a standard of either working within a certain time limit, a certain scope, and that the scope you define. And then after that, it's just using good software and letting them know that, hey, you can edit your time if you need to. But all that stuff is tracked. So they can't just go and add 40 hours to the month of work, right? It's all tracked. So I would say that's generally how I go about tracking their time and making sure that they're doing what they need to. Other than that, you really just have to give them clear instruction. If you find that you're giving instruction and it's like not getting done, you have to ask yourself, what did you say that didn't allow them to understand? Did they need more training? Well, then give them the time to train. Were you unclear? So for me, I talk really fast all the time. Like right now, I'm actually talking slow. So it's really hard for my virtual assistants to hear what I'm saying all the time. Like I'm pretty sure half the time they don't get it. And it wasn't until I started using my screen recording software that automatically transcribes what I'm saying. So one, I know for a fact when they're listening to my video, one, they're looking at the bullet points that I wrote out so they can see the actual things that I cared about. Two, they're hearing me. But three, they have the transcription of me talking and of which they can pause and go back to. So that helps me create clear objectives and clear goals without having to go and mind map something down for 30 minutes and on a Google Doc and going back and forth. It's all there being cloud recorded, cloud hosted, automatically transcribed. They can pause and play and reference whenever they want and take their time.
Awesome. Okay. Again, it's a lot of information there. I know, it would take even, we can record like 2 or 3 episodes to go in depth on this, on how to manage VAs. But you already gave us some very interesting tips. I'd like you to share what is actually the software that you're using so people can reference back to that.
Oh, yeah.
And then we can, I want to cover, before we conclude this recording, I want to cover now the part of the recurring tasks. So what's the software you use again?
Yeah, there's a ton of them out there. Monitask is the one that I'm currently using.
Monitask.
Yeah, but there's Moni, MONI task.
Okay, cool, perfect. So so everyone can use that as well. I mean, you guys can check it out following the suggestions that Reggie just gave. So I want to finish the whole process that we initially mentioned. So the first part was how to assign the tasks, and now there is also the recurring task, right? So it's a kind of a different piece of what VAs actually are doing. So let's go into that a little bit. So can you tell us how do you use the spreadsheet that you mentioned before, which actually is going to be available for anyone to download? You guys can go to thesellerprocess.com, find this episode and download it through the show notes or in the description of the YouTube video. So you're going to get the spreadsheet that Reggie is using to manage his business with his VAs, and you will find different tabs that now maybe Reggie you can refer to, so we have a clear picture of how to use this tool.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So when we talk about the recurring productivity schedule, and we talk about management in general, right, we have to keep it super simple. The moment we don't keep it simple, or the moment I find, and in general, I find at different levels, a lot of people, we love to like use all the cool features on a project management tool. Next thing you know, people are using different views that just completely like sidestep your critical path. So one, I want to say really quickly, keep it simple, which is why these templates look simple, because it's hyper focused. Don't go and like do stuff off to the side, and you have to really train your VAs not to do that. That's why I keep it ultra simple. They go priority column first. After the 2 tasks are done, they go to this spreadsheet, super simple spreadsheet, right? And again, it just has a list of reoccurring functions in the business, of which you can add whenever you want. You have the person who's assigned to them. And then after that, you have the SOP or the directions and how often it's done. And you can always change it. Like, hey, what I have is a column called frequency, and it can either be like weekly, monthly, semi-annually, just type in whatever you want. And then when does it happen? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever. And it's just very simple to look at. And I highly recommend, there's all kinds of things you can put in there. So when you download the template, you'll see all different things of which you can put, things from like reordering inventory, to creating a blog post, to doing outreach, it goes on and on and on. And what's really great about when you have a system like this, you as a business owner can kind of come into the system and change. So like I had to let go of one of my virtual assistants last month, but when I did that, I had to reallocate human capital at the end of the day, like who's in charge of what. And I'm able to immediately go in and change the frequency from twice a week to once a month, from this person to this person. So it's a really good system to use. And what's really great is not only is it easy for you to use, it's easy for the rest of your team to use. So as you start to scale out, they can go and update things automatically instead of you having to manually go in and say it. You can say on these tasks that you record, when you're done, add it to the real productivity schedule, or assign you as the backup and so as the primary. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, great. So guys, I remind you to go download this file. It's called Recurring Productivity Schedule. I think it's critical actually, because there's going to be a number of tasks that you want your team members to actually perform on a recurring basis, right? Whether that can be checking something about PPC or sending out feedback or replying to customer service emails and so on. So after a while, your VAs are going to have lots of these recurring tasks, and you gotta have an efficient way to manage this task and know who is responsible for it. So in the end, it's basically just assigning responsibility, so everybody in the team knows who has to do what and who's the alternate person that can step in case that's not done, and what's the frequency of it. So there are some tasks that need to be repeated on a weekly basis, or some other that needs to be done daily, or some other that needs to be done once a month. So there's going to be really a lot of them. So this is critical. Yeah. So we covered today how to assign one-off tasks, project-based, and how to assign recurring tasks that repeats themselves. Reggie, that was a lot of information. My last question for you is, what is your best advice to achieve more with less when it comes to managing VAs?
I know. Yeah. I mean, it sounds pretty simple, but hire more of them. Because the moment you hire more of them, the faster you can move. At first, it's a little bit of a hard hiccup to get over, because you're scaling from one person to 2 people to 3 people and so on. But the best thing to do is to outsource more, because once you can outsource more, you can move so much faster, right? Jeff Bezos didn't build Amazon by himself. He built it with an army of people. So get the 80-20 down, focus on the critical path. And as soon as you can, hire another VA, because you're going to 2x and 3x your capability and your output.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Reggie. How people can find you if they would like your help?
Yeah, for sure. So I have a ton of services. You can reach out to me at reggieyoung.com/vault. There I offer in-depth courses, specifically this one, how to hire, manage, and train virtual assistants to do almost anything. I have training for virtual assistants and a bunch of other e-commerce Amazon courses. If you're not ready to purchase today, click the pop-up and you'll get some free training that helps you with all different aspects to help you start, scale, and sell your online business.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Thank you very much, Reggie. Yeah, guys, go check out Reggie's Vault. It's called. It's basically a full library full of courses and lots of in-depth material on how to train your VAs, work with your VAs, and sell on Amazon and much more. Remember, guys, the key to success is to emulate the best. So take home these tips that Reggie just shared with us and start taking action. Okay, focus on the critical path and start applying these tips into your business. Thank you again, Reggie, and I hope to see you next time, maybe in another episode.
For sure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey entrepreneurs, I hope you enjoyed the episode and learned something from the interview. If you're serious about creating systems for your business, automating processes and building up your team so that you can transfer the tedious daily tasks in order to focus on more high-level strategic tasks and work on your business and not in your business, I've created a guide for Amazon sellers named Capturing Systems and Creating SOPs that you can find at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook, where you will learn how to leverage systems and SOPs in your Amazon business so that you can accomplish more by working less, optimize your time, automate and delegate tasks, and reap the benefits of being a true business owner and not simply an operator in your own business. Go download the ebook at thesellerprocess.com/systems ebook and start implementing all the tips and insights that I share with you. And leave us a review or a comment to let us know how the content we are sharing here is making an impact in your business. And have a productive week.